Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you. Glad to have you with us. Once again, just a reminder, make sure you like these videos and be sure you click that bell icon so you can subscribe. If we have some new episodes that come out, you'll get notified right away. And share this video with friends and relatives. I am pleased to be joined this episode by Tony St. James. Tony and I have talked for many, many years. He's a fellow farm broadcaster, and he has a radio network called All Ag All Day. He's based out of the Lubbock, Texas area, and he joins us today to talk about the situation in Texas, where our hearts go out to everybody there in Texas that's been affected by the wildfires. I know you've been trying to keep tabs on what's been going on with that, with all the other ag news that you cover. But what's the latest update for our viewers here as far as the process of the wildfires right now? How far along are they? Are they still burning?
Yeah, you would think after over 2 weeks, we would have them extinguished after snow on the ground, some rain across the area, and then all the firefighting work that's gone into this, but it's not the case. That Smokehouse Creek fire is the one that we most commonly refer to as the largest in Texas ever, with 1,050,000 acres that have burned. That, as of last check, 89% contained. You know, one of the challenges we had with that fire is agreements don't go into place with the Forest Service until March 1st. And when you have a big wildfire like this that breaks out before March 1st, things aren't ramped up and ready to go. And so that's what we've heard from some of the fire officials on the ground is just a delay in getting the help that was needed early on.
You mean they wouldn't contribute their resources to help fight this?
Well, normally we think of wildfires as having huge air support with it, and we've got the capabilities of doing that. As a matter of fact, this area burned about 12 years ago as well. Wasn't quite this big of a fire, but again, the timing of this apparently caught some off guard. And it's all prompted because we had a really wet spring and summer across that northeastern part of the Texas Panhandle. Obviously, we've had lower numbers of cattle, and if you don't have a way to get out and mow the grass that's been growing, when it goes into dormancy, it just provides quite a bit of fuel for a fire.
Well, I know there were lots of casualties when it came to the cattle herds out there. I imagine there's probably all kinds of fencing that needs to be replaced. I've heard of a lot of hay that got damaged. Of course, farm places, ranch houses, and that sort of thing. But give me an overall view of the scope of the damage and maybe something that everybody there needs some help with, because we're trying to help garner some aid for that area.
At this point, anything is good because we know that any donations, anything that comes in is really heartfelt. And so we'll start with that. Now let's back up a little bit and talk about the actual logistics of getting that done. We have challenges because we've had more than 100 families displaced by losing homes. Interesting stories, especially for those. I've got some cousins near the Pampa area, and that fire burned right up to the house and right up to the barn, went around it, and then kept burning. And it saved their house for some reason. Divine intervention's kind of what I like to refer to, though it was quite a bit of effort as well from firefighters and from volunteers. So on one hand, we've got those without anything, no home, no clothes, no nothing. And then we've got others who in ag are facing some of the challenges of getting out, finding out what cattle are going to make it. Obviously, when you look out in a field and you see carcasses, you've lost a steer or a heifer or a cow. What we don't know are the ones who have been affected from smoke inhalation. Have we got problems in the lungs? We have others who have burns across their body, and so we need to actually we need a few more weeks to determine whether or not we'll need to be putting more cattle down. So we're still a long way from knowing what our losses are of livestock. And then you mentioned fences. When you lose a fence, that is one of the most expensive things, simply because you can't get the resources to build a new fence until it's built. You've got to replace the fence before the insurance will reimburse you for it. Where do you get that money? And when you're talking, in some instances, I've heard some quotes of $10,000 per mile for 5-strand fence. It's unbelievable how big and how devastating this is from from just the financial side. So back to the question, how can we help? One way is fencing supplies. That's a great way. You obviously mentioned hay. That's another great way. Any mineral supplements, that's a good way to help. And then the one that probably can help the most is a financial donation, because that financial donation can then go to those who can use it the best, and they know where it really needs to go. So diapers would be great for families who have babies, but having a whole stockpile of, a whole barn full of diapers and not needing them, kind of seems like a waste. So money is obviously the best resource at this point.
Well, I guess the other question is, if someone wants to help with the cause and provide some assistance, the thing is, they don't know where to send it. They don't know. I mean, it's hard to single out a family that needs it, or maybe a certain community or anything. What do you recommend? I mean, I'm guessing there are organizations that are spearheading the efforts here and trying to allocate it where it's needed.
Absolutely. A couple of ways. One is Texas Cattle Feeders. That's tcfa.org. They'll have a link on their website. That Texas Panhandle, one of the largest cattle feeding regions in the U.S. Texas Cattle Feeders, they do a lot for the local and regional communities, so perfect fit for them. Another is Texas Southwestern Cattle Raisers. That's tscra.org, and they have links on their website as well. And then finally, Texas AgriLife Extension. That's the extension service within Texas, runs through Texas A&M, and they've got other ways that you can help as well. They've been spearheading the hay donations, fencing supplies, and have really been on top of it, again, because this same area was affected by that devastating wildfire 12 years ago. Many within AgriLife Extension learned how best to work through these situations. So they've really been right on top of it.
Well, we'll try to provide links to these and some other resources down below, and provide everybody a little bit of a list of resources that they can utilize if they want to help. Otherwise, besides the fire, how are you doing for the setup for the new crop year there in the Southern Plains right now? I mean, the fires wouldn't be bad if it wasn't dry, I'm thinking. But you mentioned that you did get some rain late last year. Is there any subsoil moisture right now for the crops?
I'm so glad you went there, because it's a way for us to kind of put an end to the wildfire story, at least right now, with a slight positive twist. Already in those areas that started burning at the end of February, we're seeing grass starting to reemerge. That's because we've had some moisture in that subsoil profiles. So the grass is starting to come back. Now, today it's cloudy, it's overcast, we've got windy conditions, and it's cold. So we go from 90 degrees one day to 35 the next, and then somewhere in between the day after that. We're in the springtime, which really means we see a lot of variability in our weather. But again, the positive there is those pastures are starting to come back. Now, how does this affect the possibilities of planting this year? Well, we'll start with good pre-plant moisture across the Texas Panhandle. We also have that across the southern plains as well. Let me bring up a quick note here as far as what we're seeing for the drought. And right now, just portions of the western side of the Texas Panhandle and South Plains are dry. The rest of it is looking at pretty good moisture across a good portion of the North Texas region. That's north of Dallas-Fort Worth. They've got good moisture. East Texas has come out of their drought, and the Gulf Coast and the far deep South Texas is out of their drought as well. So all of the major growing areas are ready to get started for a good year. South Texas, Gulf Coast area, they've already planted there. They had some early challenges to start the year, but crops are in the ground there. We'll see the planters rolling across central Texas and up into the Panhandle and South Plains throughout April. Right now, probably the one thing that pencils out above anything else, peanuts. Peanuts appears to be the one that pencils out the best. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of areas we can grow peanuts, and that's not something you just switch into for 1 year and then roll back into corn or sorghum or cotton. The areas we can grow peanuts are pretty limited, so you have to have that really sandy loam soil to make that work. Outside of that, we're hearing sorghum is working right now. Cotton is getting there. It's not quite there yet. Cost of production still well above 90 cents. The insurance loan rate, which was established in February, is about 83 cents. Once you put the cottonseed on top of that, you're getting into that 90-cent range, but at this point, still a loss. You need a good solid double, triple, or home run to really make that pencil out. So right now, still a lot of questions what producers will do.
Be nice to see them be able to get a good cotton crop for a change. It's been a little while. You were telling me before we started the interview that you had a chance to go look at some wheat ground here recently in the last few days. What did you find out? How is it holding up?
The wheat looks awesome. I can't believe how good the wheat crop looks across the Panhandle, the South Plains, the low rolling plains, portions of central Texas, and then that North Texas region. Most of it is hard red winter wheat, but quite a few of the fields, as I get into them, don't just have wheat, they have other varieties with it. Triticale's in there. We're seeing some radish in there as well for cover crop. So we've got some instances where it looks really good from the road, but once you get in, you realize either one, it's a cover crop, two, it's for grazing. That brings us to what will we actually harvest in wheat this year? Well, for some producers, they still have cattle out there, and with hollow stem already showing its place in those fields, if the cattle are still on it, we've really reduced the yield if we try to take that to harvest. So at this point, I think the only fields we'll see go to harvest are the ones that don't have cattle on them right here today. The other side of that is, if you have cattle, what's a little more profitable at this point? Is it a wheat crop with wheat prices where they are right now, or is it feeding cattle?
What are elevator basis levels doing out there lately? Have you heard much? I had heard that we're actually seeing grain sorghum shipped to the Dakotas and the Pacific Northwest, which is very weird, just because they can't ship much through the Panama Canal now. That's very odd. Is it still happening?
Absolutely. So Panama Canal levels there have been historically low. The drought across Panama was there in July. Wanted to see it firsthand, and sure enough, you've got the ships lining up. What's interesting is they get a place in line, but the Panama Canal Authority has been limiting the number of ships going through. The second thing they're doing is asking them to lighten their loads. And the third thing they're doing is they're charging them more. And so what we're finding is somebody who really wants to get through the canal will pay to move up. And so in many instances, it's becoming cost prohibitive to go through the Panama Canal to ship sorghum back over to China and Southeast Asia. So yes, we are seeing those using rail to go Pacific Northwest at this point. I don't know how much of that crop is going. One of the other things is we're seeing bases for sorghum pretty strong across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, and that in part because we've seen White Energy is ethanol plant in Plainview, Texas. That's halfway between Amarillo and Lubbock, and they have offered some really strong incentives for local producers in sorghum. So right now in front of the sorghum plant, even though they've got elevators there for corn that normally comes in from the Midwest, we have mountains of milo in front of this and just truck after truck unloading.
Must be a pretty good basis jump then on Milo, at least in that particular case, to draw it in like that.
Absolutely. I heard, not, don't quote me on this. Of course, I'm saying it, so I guess I'm going to be quoted on it. I don't know the details behind it, but something about there was a really strong incentive for the first truckload of sorghum to come in from either a farm or a farmer or something like that. Apparently, they got really good response from that. That one plant will go through nearly 1 million bushels of grain every week. The ethanol, they rail most of that out to the West Coast. Some of it does stay within Texas. And then the distillers' grains, they don't have to dry because of the dairies and the livestock. So really, their opportunity to have positive margins, pretty good.
That's awesome. Well, Tony, thank you for the update. I always look forward to hearing with you and comparing notes. We'll hopefully do this again soon here. And once we get into the growing season, we'll see how things are going by then. That's Tony St. James with a radio network, All Ag All Day. He's based in Lubbock, Texas. And that'll do it for this episode. Appreciate you joining us. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Bowling. Catch you next time on the Comstock Channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well.